Hey gang, Jake here. This has been one of the weirdest years in gaming for me. We've had some of the biggest hitters come out all in the last year, from Returnal to Resident Evil 8 to Metroid fucking Dread, and I didn't play any of them. I'm honestly not entirely sure why. Games were coming out that I cared about. We even got a pseudo-sequel to my Game of the Year for last year, and yet I didn't even finish it. I think I've been in a weird transitional period. I went to college, I moved 2 hours from home, and I joined the big leagues by going from 100 subscribers to 200 subscribers. With all the change in my life, I've been resorting to a lot of other forms of media, from movies to TV to hell, even comics. I read the entire Fortnite Batman comic, and the weird part was that it was good. But despite all that, I still love video games, and the vast majority of the big memorable experiences for me are the ones I enjoyed in that medium. Because of that, I want to take some time to look at some of the most memorable games I've played in the last year. But before that, I want to take a look at an honorable mention, The Suicide Squad. This is one hell of a fantastic video game. It's incredibly creative, the visuals are a treat, the cast is amazing, the plot is intense but fun, the characters are iconic, and it's all around a genuine treat to experience. The only real issue is, well, it's not a video game. Also, HBO Max still hasn't put it back up as of writing this, so if they could just get to that, thank you. So, there's a lot of games these days that prioritize short, action-packed experiences over long runtimes, and that's a genuinely admirable goal. I feel like creating an insanely enjoyable hour of content is much more valuable than 40 hours of repetitive slop. There's one game that really encapsulates this, and that's because it's not a game. It's a demo. Unbeatable White Label, as well as its precursor, Unbeatable Arcade Mix, is the first game I played this year that I knew would be a genuinely awe-inspiring experience. Once in a while, a game comes around that reminds you why you love the medium. And for me, that was this. Everything about this game oozes passion, from the gameplay to the characters to the visual style. As previously mentioned, this is just a demo, a brief glimpse at what we're getting as the game gets bigger. But considering the impact it's already had on me, I have no doubt in my mind that the full release is going to be a strong contender for Game of the Year whenever it does arrive. Now, sometimes a project comes along that really shows that same passion and drive, but struggles thanks to the oversight of some less than competent corporate overheads. However, I think there's an argument to be made that those cases can be more impressive, because they can still manage to be genuinely great experiences despite the setbacks. I'm of course talking about Nickelodeon AllStar Brawl. This game has been severely handicapped for months, and it's thanks to pointless intervention from the people with power in the bigger companies. Yet, in spite of that, tons of love for the platform fighter scene shines through. Sure, there's some jank, but it's genuinely entertaining, and leaves the room open for tons of hilarious applications. I've heard plenty of comparisons to a certain other game with classic IP crossing over in the horizon. And while I get it, I think it's important to understand that it doesn't matter how many OG voices or alternate costumes you have. If your game's just not fun, it's not going to hold up in the long run. NASB is fun even without the fluff. And 20 years from now, I'm willing to bet this game will still be played by a fanbase that has real passion for it. So, we've talked a lot about games from relatively young studios in genres that they're catching their footing in, but it's also super satisfying to watch a group of developers that have been in the game longer than I've been kicking hit their stride once more. For me, that was Blaster Master Zero 3. I've thoroughly enjoyed just about every not Galgun game Inti's put out since Azure Striker Gunvolt 1, and despite some flaws, Blaster Master Zero 3 is no exception. This game has some issues, but I think between how it builds on the last game, implements ideas from other games, and still manages to be its own thing, this game points towards a bright future for Inti games. 2022, Year of Gunvolt, baby! Woo! But besides all that, I think this game does one of the most important things a finale to a trilogy can do. It ends. I know I could have played 10 more games following Jason and Eve, but this feels like a natural conclusion to their adventures, and it works damn well. Here's to a bright future, Inti, and thanks for dubbing LAX too. That's gonna be sick as hell. So, there's only one full game left to cover, but before we get to that, there's one more thing I want to do. The BULR, of course, or the Big Update Lightning Round. I said I didn't play a lot of new games, but that's at least partially because the old games came back with a vengeance. Tons of goats from the past got new content that justifies a mention, so let's get into those. So honestly, Fortnite hasn't ever really been my thing, and I didn't play anything before Chapter 3 outside of like 3 rounds of the Thanos mode from 2017. But after crunching the lore instead of studying, I kinda got a hankering for it, and I'm super glad I hopped in because it's been tons of fun. I'm not very good, but the movement options are super fun to screw with. The new slide is sick as hell, and I know if I was any good, I would love it even more. On top of that, cars and web slingers are incredibly jank and insanely fun to screw with, and I just find myself driving and swinging around way more than fighting. Indie Pogo dropped a new character in October, and while he was way behind schedule, he's a super iconic and fun character to screw with. And a lot of the additions to the game that came with that update are genuinely great. This makes me genuinely really hyped for Gunvolt to show up in this game again, because getting to use this system with a character I love will be so satisfying. Minecraft finally got the second half of its Caves and Cliffs update recently, and honestly, I don't know how much of my enjoyment comes from what's new and how much of it comes from it just being Minecraft, but this is some of the most fun I've had with a multiplayer game in recent memory. Not really a Caves and Cliffs thing, but my friend group started a new server with a really pretty seed, and now we've got a settlement surrounded by mountains and right next to a massive lake, and damn, did anyone else just forget how pretty this game is? Finally, we reached the one game I can't help but come back to, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. We got 3 characters this year, and all of them have been genuinely fantastic to see come to life. Kazi is not a character I love, but he brought tons of amazing content with him, and he's a really cool inclusion to see. Sora's another character I'm not super attached to, but his mere presence was so impactful and earth-shattering that I couldn't help but shed tears at his reveal. It was the end of an era, and I'm really glad I got to go along for the ride. Lastly, even though Pythra isn't a character that everyone resonated with, these characters meant so much to me as a fan. I really love Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and not only did these characters bring tons of amazing all-rest love to my favorite game, but they did what may be the most important thing, which is get me to play Xenoblade 2 again. This release got me to finally beat Torno, which, despite its flaws, has an incredibly emotional ending that left me destroyed. It also led to me dedicating a lot more time to a 4th playthrough of the base game, and because of that, I got to see it in a whole new light. All in all, Smash is so incredibly important to me, and I'm so happy I got to watch this community come together in the end to celebrate. And finally, we have our final mention, our Game of the Year. Now, these videos aren't really ordered in the traditional sense, but I always try to save my personal pick for GOTY for the last, which may not be what you expect because, well, it's a game from August 2020. Now, I hear what you're saying. Jake, if that counts, where are games like Going Under or Bloodstained 2? And I get that, those games are great, but technically we're not talking about No Straight Roads. We're talking about No Straight Roads Encore Edition. Okay, so maybe that should be in the BULR, but it's my video and it really doesn't matter. I got to experience this game in November of this year, and it is a genuinely special experience. Music isn't something that I'm an expert on, but when it's great, it can take an experience from good to outstanding, and no game gets that like NSR. So much about this game just works for me. From the soundtrack, to the gameplay, to the characters, to the world, it all just clicks and creates this beautiful 6-hour experience for the player to dive into. With every other game on the list, I've always got some caveat to recommending it. Unbeatable's great, but it's just a demo. Nazba's great, but it's handicapped by restrictions. Blaster Master Zero 3 is great, but I honestly prefer Blaster Master Zero 2. There is no caveat for No Straight Roads. It is worth every cent and every second you spend on it. And if there's one thing you take from this video, let it be that Encore Edition should be in your Steam cart now. Get on it. Well gang, it's been a long year, but I want to thank you guys that have decided to stick around. It really does mean a lot. As of today, I've posted a video every 2 weeks for a year, if you count that last one. Honestly, I'm not someone who's super pressed about consistency in a YouTuber schedule, but this was a goal I set out, like, when I made the Hades video. And I'm really glad I was able to pull it off. That being said, there's a lot of games coming out next year that really matter to me, from Framemakers to Gunvolt 3, and now that I know I can do this upload schedule, I don't really think I need to. What I'm trying to say is, I'm probably going to take a break for a little bit. I don't plan on this being like my last video, but I want to take some time off to really enjoy making them again, and I can't really do that when I'm throwing myself at them every 2 weeks. It's been an honor, folks, and I want to thank you for every step of the journey. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.